Okay, so this is a tutorial video just on chapter 1, describing information systems in their very simplest form. So these tutorial videos are not designed to replace your existing reading material from your textbook or your study guides. The purpose of the video is just to provide a very kind of crude, if you like, learning aid for your revision course. So I'm going to go through chapter 1 of the book, starting on page 47, where we look at the definition of the information system in its most fundamental form. So if we think about an information system, we need to think about what that information system does, what's its purpose. Okay, an information system in its most basic incarnation transfers what we call an input into an output. Now I use a digital pad in these videos to just to jot down some notes as I go along, but don't take these notes too seriously because my writing doesn't come across very well on the digital pad. So in an information system we have an input and we transfer that to an output. So the bit in between here is called the process. So an information system must process data in some way in order to turn it into an output. Okay, so let's expand a little bit on our definition of the information system. Okay, let's just clear this away. So an information system takes an input and processes that input and turns it into an output. So you may ask yourself, what's this input we're talking about here? Well, an input is what we call raw data. The process is probably some kind of software that we're using. And finally, the output is information. And you may think to yourself, well, isn't data really the same thing as information? Well, it's not really, because data by itself is not useful. Okay, so data is not useful, whereas information is useful data. So that's the difference between data and information, and I often use the shopping receipt example to describe the difference between data and information. So if you have a shopping receipt, you have a series of products down one column and a series of prices down the next. So you may have a DVD and you'll have its price. You may have pizza and you may have its price, and then you'll have a total. Now, by itself, this is just raw data. Here's a product, and here's the price for that product. Not very useful by itself. But if you combine the data from multiple customers together, you can turn this data into information in the form of a trend. And you can tell that, well, DVDs and pizzas are always bought together, and maybe you can come up with a special offer for both of those products. Now, if you combine this, of course, with a value card, when you go into a shopping center, you can often earn some points when you buy some products. And the value card may contain things like your age and your gender. So you can tell from the information on the value card, when you combine it with the information on the receipt over a certain time, that certain age groups, say 18 to 25-year-olds, always buy DVDs and pizzas together. So we've transferred this raw data into useful information. That's what an information system does. It transfers an input through a process into an output. And we call these three things. I'm going to talk about three sets of numbers in this chapter. And the first set of number is the number 3, and it talks about these three things. It talks about an input, it talks about a process, and then it talks about an output. And we call these three things three activities. So these are the three activities of an information system. So when you think about the three activities of an information system, think about the input, the process, and the output. They are the three activities of an information system. So that's the first number, number 3. Okay. Alright, so let's just clear that away. Save that. Okay, so now we've looked at the three activities of an information system: the input, the output, and the process. Okay, the next set of numbers I'm going to look at here are the strategic business objectives. Okay, and there are six business objectives. Okay, so there's no point in implementing an information system if we don't know what we're going to get from it. So when we put in an information system, we need to know how is it going to benefit the organization, how is it going to add on to the organization. Okay, so there are six ways in which an information system can add on to the organization. So it's important that we know what value we're going to get from the information system. So the next number I'm going to look at is the number 6. The very first strategic business objective is what we call operational excellence. Excuse my abbreviations. So operational excellence, that tells us how an information system makes the organization better. All right. How it inside in any company, there are several processes. You have a manufacturing process, you may have a sales process, a design process, a HR process, all that type of stuff. So if we bring in an information system, how does that information system enhance the processes within the organization? Now pages, by the way, 44 to 46 of your textbook are very useful when we talk about strategic business objectives, because for each of the business objective it gives a real world example of what companies have obtained these objectives by implementing an information system. So the example for the first one is Walmart. And Walmart introduced this very efficient retail link system. Okay, a retail link system. And the retail link system connected into suppliers. So the Walmart's retail system connected into the information system of its suppliers. When a product came off of the shelf from Walmart, the suppliers were automatically informed when a product was sold and came off the shelf. So when enough products came off the shelf, the supplier could restock the product, and this kept the inventory costs very low. So it kept the inventory costs down for Walmart. So this retail link system, which was connected into the supplier's computer system, informed the suppliers when a product came off of one of its shelves, and therefore the suppliers knew when the products were sufficiently low. So this kept the inventory costs low for Walmart. That's how Walmart achieved operational excellence, by using an information system. And that's the first strategic objective. Okay, let's just clear that away. The second strategic objective is a new product. So if we introduce an information system, sometimes we may be able to release a new product onto the marketplace. Now, a very simple example of this is iTunes. iTunes allows customers to download MP3s. If you compare that to a traditional record store, let's just say we have a record store that sells CDs. You have to go in and you want to buy a CD, you have to buy the entire CD. You can't just buy a track from the CD, so iTunes allows to buy individual tracks instead of paying more money for an entire CD. So the information system, which allows us to sell MP3s online, allows us to introduce a new product to the marketplace, and we can sell this new product on the internet. A record store is still stuck in the old way of selling CDs, but the information system that allows us to sell MP3s online really gives us if you like, an advantage over the record store, and allows us to sell a new product into the marketplace. Okay. So that's the second business objective. Okay. The third business objective is customer intimacy. Customer intimacy. And what customer intimacy is all about is getting to know our customers better. So getting to know our customers, okay. And an example that we have in the book here is the Mandarin Hotel Group. So the Mandarin Hotel Group uses an information system to record guest preferences. Okay, so when a guest comes in, they're able to record the guest preferences, and they may consist of things like the room temperature. It may consist of something like their check-in time or their preferred check-out time, and what TV channels they want to watch, that kind of stuff. So the information system allows the hotel to record these things that the guest likes: the room temperature, the preferred checkout time, their TV channels. So when the guest comes back to the hotel, the managers already know what their individual preferences might be. So it gives the guest a sense that, yeah, this hotel, they care about my preferences. They know what I've been here before, and they know what I like. Okay, and that's how we use an information system to achieve customer intimacy. Think about the Mandarin Hotel Group, and they're based in Manhattan. You can find them on page 45 of your textbook. Okay, so let's just clear that away. The fourth objective is improved decision making. So decision making. And decision making allows managers to make really more informed decisions. So decision making allows managers to make better decisions. Okay. Now, when you think of this decision-making process, think of the Verizon Group. And the Verizon Group implemented what was called a digital dashboard. Why did they implement a digital dashboard? Well, it gave real-time information about customer complaints. Okay. So there's no point in having an information system in our organization if that information isn't delivered to us in a timely way. So we need to have information at the time when we need it. So this digital dashboard that the Verizon Group implemented told the managers about all the complaints that were coming in through their support line, how those complaints were dealt with, the nature of those complaints, and so on, and allowed managers to make better decisions about the company based on the complaints and the feedback that they were getting via their customers. And you can read about the Verizon Group on page 46. So the Verizon Group, they implemented an information system which comprised a digital dashboard, and the digital dashboard told managers about all the complaints that were coming into the organization at the time they were coming in. So the digital dashboard gave real-time information to managers, which allowed them to make better decisions. Okay. All right. So let's clear that away. That was the fourth objective. So the fifth objective is linked very closely, I think, to the second one, and this relates to competitive advantage. And competitive advantage is kind of linked to maybe the second one, relating to new products and services. When we take the example again of the MP3 released by iTunes, the MP3 gives us an advantage over the traditional CDs, because instead of buying an entire CD, maybe we just want to buy an individual MP3, an individual track from that CD. So when iTunes came along, this MP3 information system allowed iTunes a competitive advantage over traditional record stores. So the information system which allowed iTunes to sell MP3s online gave them a competitive advantage. Okay, so by releasing a new product onto the market, iTunes had a competitive advantage, in the same way that Walmart has a competitive advantage over other retail stores with their retail system. Their retail system allows Walmart to keep inventory costs low. Okay. Whereas iTunes allows a customer to buy an individual track from a CD instead of buying a whole CD. And instead of having to ship out CDs to people and pay for packaging and logistics and all that, iTunes can keep those costs down by allowing users to download MP3s online. So we have a competitive advantage from iTunes, a competitive advantage from Walmart, and again the last example we looked at for the Modern Hotel, they also had a competitive advantage because they remember the preferences that their guests used from the previous stays to give them improved customer intimacy. And this improved customer intimacy, if your competitors don't have it, that gives you a competitive advantage. Now, it is a rather double-edged sword, however. I'll just take a look at why that might be. And this brings us on to our sixth objective, and that is survival. And you may think, well, what has competitive advantage got to do with survival, got to do with a new product and service? Well, they're all linked in together. So let's take the Citibank example. Citibank were the first bank to introduce ATMs in 1977. So in 1977, Citibank introduced some ATMs. Now they were the first to market, which gave them a competitive advantage. So we met our second objective, and that was great. In another way, we met our fifth objective about competitive advantage, and that was great. But we also met our second objective about introducing a new product to the market. So we introduced a new product, and we got a competitive advantage. So we met objective 2 and we met objective 5. But unfortunately, this didn't help objective 6 very much, because within a few years, Citibank's ATMs became outdated, and eventually their competitors brought out better ATMs. So although there was a short-term competitive advantage by introducing a new product and service, the survival of the system wasn't taken care of because the ATMs weren't future-proof. Okay, so when you're implementing a new information system, you have to think about how that information system is going to last over the next 5-10 years. Okay, and so there are the six objectives that we have to think about when implementing an information system. We have survival, competitive advantage, improved decision making, customer and supplier intimacy, new products and services, and operational excellence. So take a look at page 44 to 46 about that. So when you're reading your exam paper, you may or may not get a question where you're given a fictitious company, and you have to read about that company and say, well, how can we get value from this from implementing an information system? And you could talk about the 6 strategic objectives and how implementing an information system can meet these 6 objectives. Okay. All right. So let's move on a little bit. So I'm gonna talk about the next important number, and that is the 3 dimensions of an information system. So the next number is the number 3, and we're going to talk about 3 dimensions, and this is very straightforward. The 3 dimensions of an information system are, well, firstly we have the organizational dimension. That's the first dimension, and the second dimension is going to be the technology dimension, and then the third is the behavioral or the management dimension. So let's write in behavioral. Now, an organization, well, that's really the people. When you think about the organization dimension, think about the people within the organization. And if you look at page 51, of your textbook, you're going to see a structure about how people are organized within the organization. And this is a pyramid structure, and on the top of the structure you have the senior management, and then on the middle you have the middle management, and then on the bottom you have the operational management. Okay, and that's organized into a type of pyramid structure, which I won't attempt to draw freehand because I'd make a mess. So from the top of the pyramid, you have this senior management. They make all the plans on how the information system is going to be used. The middle management try and implement those plans, and then the operational management, they monitor the information systems on a day-to-day basis to make sure those plans are being implemented. So again, in an exam, you could read about a company, and you could be asked, well, how can this fictitious company you know, use the three dimensions of an information system to enhance the business processes. So you can talk about, well, you can talk about the division of labor within the organization, where you have senior management making out the plans for the business, then you have the middle management implementing the plans, and the operational management and how they might monitor the information system. So if we took the case of Walmart, we could talk about their retail system, how the senior managers might have thought about it, how the middle management might have implemented it, and how the operational management may have monitored the system. So it's important that when you're answering questions in an exam, to think about an example. Okay, so if you read about a fictitious company, it's really important if the question asks you to suggest an information system, you have to maybe make up a type of information system and then apply that to the organization. Okay, don't just give flat definitions and say, well, this is senior management, this is middle management, this is operational management, this is how they may use an information system. No, don't do that. Think about real world examples all of the time in your answers. So the next dimension is the technical dimension, and that consists of, we have hardware and software, and then we have the network. So the hardware component of an information system are the computers, or the PDAs. The software is the actual software that runs the information system, maybe analytical software, the software that powers the digital dashboard, and the retail system like Walmart have. And then the network part of the information system, well, that's things like the intranet, the extranet, and the internet. An intranet is an internal part of an organization. Those of you familiar with internal mail will know that when you want to send an email to an employee within the organization, we can do that through the intranet. The extranet, well, that's like an extension of our internal network to another organization. So let's just say we're a manufacturer of clothes, and we use UPS an awful lot to ship those clothes around. Well, instead of sending the UPS an order every single day of the week, we let UPS connect in to our intranet and via an external connection. So really, we have allowed UPS to use an extranet, to use our extranet. Okay, so the extranet is kind of an extended arm of our intranet, letting an outside organization connect in to our internal network. And you can get a breakdown of that on page 53. Look at page 53 of your text. The behavioral approach then, well, that talks about the behavior of managers and how the management team might implement the plans made out by the senior managers. Okay, and you can see that on page 52 of your text. Alright, so that's the three dimensions of the information system. So you come across the three important numbers, 3 activities, 6 objectives, and 3 dimensions. 3, 6, 3. We've got 3 activities, we've got 6 objectives, and we've got 3 dimensions. So when you think about an information system, think of them in terms of the input, the outputs, and the processes, and then the objectives that we looked at, and the 3 dimensions. Okay, and that's really is the fundamentals of an information system. We're not quite done yet. So let's just finish up on what we call an information value chain. Again, we want to be sure that when we implement an information system, that we're getting value for money. Now, if you look at page 57 of your text and take a look at the diagram on the top of the page, diagram 1.7, we see an example of an information system value chain. An information system value chain breaks down the business into little squares, if you like, or little blocks, and it links all those blocks together, and it tells you how an information system can enhance each one of those blocks, and each block is a process within the organization. Okay. So when we think of an information system, remember that there are three primary activities. We have the data collection, which is the input, and then we have the processing of that data, and then we have another box for the output, or the dissemination of the data. So let me just add in another box just right here. Okay, so there you go. That's that could have been done better, but anyway, we have number one would be the data collection. So number one here is the collection of the data. Number two here, well, that's how we process the data. And number three is the output, or the dissemination of the data. Okay. Now later on in different chapters we'll be looking at how to break up the business into different processes. Some of you may be already familiar with the different key systems in the business. You may have supply chain management, you may have an enterprise management, and then you may have a customer management system. So we need to talk about, well, if we collect some raw data, how do we transform that raw data? What does that raw data become? And how can we bring in that data into our business processes? So you in an exam question, you may be asked to read about a fictitious company again. So when we look at the information value chain, the information value chain tells us how we get value from an information system. So we start off with the raw data. That's the first level of the chain, and then from there we go to how that data is processed with our information system, and then from there we go to how that data is output or disseminated. And then we have to say, well, okay, where does this information go once it's being processed? Well, we could talk about it might go into a supply chain management system, it might go into a customer relationship management system, or it might go into an enterprise management system. And then we talk about how the information is used within each of those systems, and we might give real world examples. So if you're reading about a company in an exam and you say, well, what data might this company use, you need to give an example of the data. If you're talking about a shopping center, you're going to be talking about the data will be the prices of the products and the products. Then you might say, well, how is the data processed by the information system? And you can talk about a fictitious retail system that you could implement. Then you could say, what does the data become once it's processed, and how is it used then within the organization? And that really is what a value chain is. So we start at the very start of the chain, and we work our way down through the various levels of the chain until we get to the end. Okay, and you can take a look at that on page 57. So finally, we have these things called complementary assets, and complementary assets really are how they sound. So we have complementary assets, or comp assets. Okay, if you're implementing an information system, it really is no good if you don't have the right structures in place to support it. Now if you look at page 59 of your textbook and take a look at table 1.3, you'll see three types of complementary asset. You have organizational, managerial, and social. So there's no point really in bringing in an information system if these complementary assets just aren't there to support it. So if you introduce a new retail information system like Walmart, but your managers don't want to use it, then it's not going to work. So there has to be support. There has to be support within the organization for the information system. Okay, your business processes have to support the new information system. The management need to support it, or else it's not going to work. And the culture within the organization, that needs to be right. If your employees are resistant to change, if they don't want a new system, they're not going to use it. So you need to line up all these complementary assets, the organizational, the management, and the social, before you implement an information system. And that's on page 59, table 1.3. Okay, so that pretty much concludes this revision tutorial video on chapter 1, going through the concepts of an information system. But before we finish up there, I'm just going to give you an example. Hopefully you can see this okay. Just going to give you an example here of this is question 5 from the 2010 paper, and we're looking at question 5 part B, and you may see some familiar terms here. This is for 10 marks. So, using your knowledge of a business such as MobileMe. Now, MobileMe is a fictitious company that is in the exam paper, and so you have this fictitious company, and you're asked to compare and contrast the organizational dimension of information systems. So we see the keyword there, dimension. We know that an information system has 3 dimensions, and we're asked to compare and contrast the organizational dimension with the technical and behavioral dimension. Okay, so we need to read. We read about the company, the fictitious company, MobileMe, and then we talk about the 3 dimensions. We talk about the technical, the behavioral, and the organizational dimension. Okay, so for the organizational level, provide examples of hierarchy of authority. Now, the example of the hierarchy of authority, well, we've looked at that already when we looked at the pyramid structure, and the pyramid structure is on page 51. So if you want an example of a hierarchy of authority, take a look at page 51 and apply that chart into a company like MobileMe. You should have a copy of this exam paper. And then it says the separation of the business processes. Well, you need to come up with some business functions and processes. You might need to just invent them and say, well, inside in the MobileMe organization, we're going to have the following functions and processes. And you can get an example of some functions and processes towards the start of chapter 2 in a nice little table. And let me just dig that up for you. Okay, so if you look at page 36, you get an example of some products and services that might be present in the business, and as well, you need to talk about how the separation of the business functions and the separation of the business culture. Okay, and the business culture is important for our complementary assets. So if the business culture isn't correct, then the information system for MobileMe isn't going to work. So that is just an example of the type of exam question you might get in relation to chapter 1. You'll be given a fictitious company, and you're asked to compare the 3 dimensions of the information system and talk about the different levels of authority, the functions, the processes, and the culture. Okay, so that concludes this tutorial video. Take a look at chapter 1. Take a look at the 2010 paper, question 5, part B, in your own time, and that might help you to revise a little bit better.